Now, I know I'm not going to be the first person to ever talk about some of these series, but I think this is a case of they don't love you like I love you. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk about some fantasy series, maybe that just isn't getting enough love in the end. Now, these again are series, especially if you've watched this channel before, you've heard me talk about many a time. But it's one of those where I feel like, you always see BookTube always kind of coalesce around like the same 10, 15 series. So I want to kind of talk about some series I feel like deserve a little bit more of your love, a little bit more of your attention, and maybe your money, your eyes, your time to read them. Because if you haven't yet, these are all big 2 thumbs up recommendations from me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break it into subcategory here. I've got trilogies, I've got 4 books or more, I've got short stories and collections, and I've got successful, but BookTube doesn't really talk about them at all. So here we go, guys. Some fantasy series I think deserve a little bit more love. Let's begin with trilogies, and I have to start by talking about The Last War by Mike Shackle. And the reason this one comes on here is because I had been kind of looking for something that had that first law vibe. Got the grimdark setting, you got the snappy dialogue, but it's a little different in that this takes place basically with a city that has been occupied by the enemy. The story starts off with them losing, the good guys losing, and you have such incredible character arcs in this series. Characters that start off as, cowards basically and become like true blue heroes by the end. Characters that you think maybe would, in a normal fantasy story, might be like your hero, maybe might turn out to be, well, a piece of garbage by the end. I think that's what a grimdark series like The Last War will dictate, but this was just a thrill ride beginning to end. I love how tight Mike Shackle kept this series by not bloating it to 4 or 5 books. It really felt like a full story. And it does use a little bit of a plot device that some people may not be crazy about, but it's one of those where I feel like it is done right. Like another one on this list. See if you can kind of decipher what I mean by some of those clues. So check that one out for sure. Another one that is kind of in the same vein and that the whole thing takes place as a siege in this trilogy, that is Godblind by Anna Stevens. This one, I got a lot of recommendations from Joe Abercrombie fans for. Now, I won't say it is like First Law, really. A lot of the dialogue you can kind of see like that. A lot of the interactions between the characters can kind of feel like the ones from the First Law. But this is very different, I think. It definitely deals with just how punishing it can be to try to wait out someone when you're, you're under siege and you're trying to wait out an army, trying to starve them out, things like that. It might not seem like things that you think are very interesting, but it plays with a lot of different things that make it quite interesting, and it really goes all in on some of those just techniques that you will use in the atrocities of war. And it's going to have some things, again, very dark. It's going to be very messed up. I think there's a lot of people who tap out in book 1 at a scene with a tree. It's very grim, guys. It's very dark. These first 2 series I'm mentioning here, very dark, as would be the third one here. I think this one's probably a little lighter than the other 2, but it's still got a lot of grimdark moments. I'm talking about the 5 Warrior Angel series by Brian Lee Durfee. Yes, BookTube's own Brian Lee Durfee. And the thing is people think because Brian's just such a chuckalicious guy, he's just such a goofball on his channel, they don't realize he's a really good writer. Because 5 Warrior Angels is a very good series. And I think it's one of those, if you like Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, you'll probably like this a lot because there is a lot of similarities there. But also if you like the old fetch quest in that it's, we got to get these magical relics and they all have to be in one place for this big thing, this big event to happen. You're kind of ticking clock, not quite like Tarmageddon or something like that, but it does have like that ticking clock of, hey, this big apocalyptic event is going to happen, and we have to acquire all these objects beforehand. Really great character work in here. And it even has a really great animal companion that he named Beer Mug, and it works. Somehow it works. However, if that isn't dark enough for you guys, it seems you're saying these 3 series, you're like, you know what, Mike, I want it so dark, I can't see a foot in front of my face. Well, guys, there is a solution to that, and it is The Prince of Nothing by R. Scott Baker. Now, this is one I feel like it's kind of picked up a little bit on BookTube. More people are talking about it. That's how I got into it, was other booktubers really convincing me to read it. But this is one definitely not going to be a series for everyone. So say you're doing a perfect marriage of like some of the really deep stuff in the Dune Chronicles, like some of the really out there stuff, but you're also throwing in like the Silmarillion by J.R. Tolkien, but you're wrapping it around real world atrocities like the Crusades. It's really dark. It is sinister. It is messed up, guys. It is so out there, but damn, is it not thought-provoking? Will it not stick in your head for a long time? And I've gone on record saying the first book, The Darkness Comes Before, may be the best prologue I've ever read in a book, and it might be one of my 10 favorite fantasy books ever. it just sets the stage in this world just so, so beautifully well. And it continues through the whole trilogy. It's definitely one of those that will test your patience on what you can stand as a reader, because the content is just so messed up. It is beyond brutal. So if you are easily bothered by very, very bad things, maybe it's not the series for you. But, like I said, if you've read a lot of grimdark series and you're like, I just don't feel like they're dark enough, I definitely think that the Prince of Nothing series will scratch that itch. So say trilogies aren't really your thing. You want to just kind of keep going. You want like something that's going to have, 6 seasons plus a movie? I think these are kind of be the way that you would want to head here. I have to talk about The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell. This one gets such a divisive reaction. This was the very first read-along that we did on the series. For a series, we did Rage of Dragons first, but for a series, this was the very first read-along we did. It was kind of like the dry run before we did the ℚ𝕦𝕣𝕠𝕟 read-along, which, well, that was a thing. But I had a blast with this. The dialogue is fantastic. It's really snappy. It's witty. It's I saw it on the lighter side of grimdark because it has some really dark elements, but Mr. Castell doesn't sit there and just tell you exactly what everybody's intestines look like as they're falling out. But those things are happening. But really, to me, it makes me think of like a more modern version of Three Musketeers. It kind of really feels like that. You got 3 likable rogues and other characters that really become likable over time and become part of this little group here. But just the banter between those main 3 is just what kept me in this series the whole time. Really great swordplay. The swordplay, the action is really, really well done. The villains might not last for everybody. And I say that, like, book 3, he tries to do something a little different, but it wasn't bad. That book 1, 2, and 4 are my favorite, and I really feel like this could have been a trilogy, but it's a really, really fun series. If you're just looking for some swashbuckling fun, I think that would be one that would entertain you. And it is adult fantasy, so expect those things, but definitely nothing as dark as some of those ones I did mention before this. Next, I talked about this a lot last year, and it seems like a series that people, when they read it, they love it, but not a lot of people are reading it. That is War for the Rose Throne by Peter McLean. This is wonderful. I thought this series was so engaging. And the way that it starts with like the street level, the kind of like the gangs, and it evolves into like really getting deep into the city politics is really, really well done. And this attacks PTSD, war stress, as they call it. It attacks that really well, that these guys are straight up like just battle scarred forever. And they can just have those moments where they just completely go into a hole and they just can't exist in a normal society. And with things going to, just shit left and right around them. Really good. Plays with magic a little bit, but it kind of leaves it up to your interpretation of what that magic is. Damn, what a great, great character. Thomas Piety, that is a character I've said that character will live in my head for a long time as you live through his head in 4 books. And man, it could have won another one, and I would have really enjoyed it. But damn good series. I can't say enough great things about it. One of my best series that I did read last year. And then Saga of the Forgotten Warrior, Larry Correia. I know why this was not more popular. Larry upsets a lot of people. He's done something I didn't think was possible, and he has kind of turned fantasy into a thriller. But he doesn't do it by sacrificing world building. His world is really cool. I say it's like a great marriage of Malazan and Stormlight Archive, in that it has a very, very complex story, but it does it in this like flashback kind of way, 21 years later, 18 years later, until it gets to the current timeline. And it seems to work out really well. I'm not done with the series. I'm 3 books in. I've really enjoyed every one. Just kind of fell victim to the numbers because I talk about series so much and I start so many new series because as booktubers, we just get so many recommendations. And sometimes that's going to happen. But that's a series I say definitely give a try, especially if you're feeling a little exhausted. Are you saying that like maybe some of these slow burn fantasy series are really starting to wear on you? This one is a mile a minute. He really just keeps the pace just going quickly the whole time, almost like a Red Rising kind of way. Not where it's like nonstop action like Red Rising, but that like even when there's characters just sitting down and talking, you're anxious to see what's going to happen next. He's really, really good at this. And of course, the guy who writes Monster Hunter is going to be very, very good at writing action. Some of his sword fights are just amazing. True cinematic in quality. So how about some short stories? So all this stuff's too long. Too many trilogies. No more 8, 9 series, no books in a series, no more 700 page novel. You need some short stories. A couple of recommendations. I can't bang the drum hard enough, guys, for Robert E. Howard and the Conan stories. I think those are such a wonderful palate cleanser for you, and it will make you realize, you know what? You don't need 700 pages to write a really great story, because Robert E. Howard was churning out 15, 20, 30-page stories with Conan, and they were just as good as anything I've ever read. So much meat on the bone with his stories. So if you're exhausted of those really, really long stories, I think you just kind of pick up some of these and like some of your downtime, and I think you'll have a great time with them. In one sitting, you can read a lot of these, but man, There are so many legendary ones by Robert E. Howard, and I just think that he was an author that was so ahead of his time. He was gone too soon. He died at 30. He had so much more to give. And I feel like it's one of those where he just does not get the recognition. I think he deserves every bit the recognition for sword and sorcery as Tolkien does for fantasy. I really do think that he does deserve his flowers, and not enough people will talk about him or give him time because they say, oh, it's 100 years old. It's probably not my bag. I think you'd be surprised how well some of his stories have aged. They're really, really good. And hey, who doesn't love Conan? At least that's how I feel. This one's going to kind of be miscellaneous, I guess you say, because he's got dozens and dozens of short story collections out there. A lot of people will say this doesn't qualify. This is science fiction. But if you ask Ray Bradbury, he said he does not write science fiction. He said his stories contain magic and monsters and very fantastical elements. So I guess you'd call it sci fantasy if you want to get into, if you acknowledge that as a real subgenre. With me, it's like, look, I just want you to read more Ray Bradbury because your life will be better for it. He was that amazing of a writer. And he's got so many stories where, yes, you're dealing with the coming of age under supernatural things. And that's something that always really works well for me, I think. But so he's very much a hybrid of sci-fi fantasy horror, which is what this channel is. That's maybe why he's one of my favorite authors ever, because he was able to find a way to mix all three of those together. But just, I'm not going to name specific short stories for you because there's hundreds. I mean, there's so many collections and they're so good. And I don't think there's ever going to be a Ray Bradbury story that you read and say, oh, I just did not enjoy that at all, because he's just had a way with words. The guy was amazing, and you can get some nice, small, bite-sized stories here to kind of cleanse the palate once in a while before you get into some of these bigger chonkers here I'm going to talk about at the end. Now, these are successful, but BookTube doesn't really talk about them, and that you've probably heard someone talk about them, but not very much. And they might start to be picking up a little bit now, but they haven't really to this point. First, Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis. This is a series I've talked about in the channel because I love it. I grew up with it. It might be one of those things you need to read when you're younger. I think it's something if you have young kids, maybe you want to read together with them. That would be a really great idea. But there's no denying C.S. Lewis's charm. And regardless of what you heard, no, you don't have to have Christian beliefs to enjoy the Chronicles of Narnia. I was a teenager before I even realized those things were there. But this was the first fantasy series I ever read, I guess you'd say, because I read The Hobbit. I didn't even know Lord of the Rings was the sequel to The Hobbit at the time. But the first series I read through all the way when I was younger was the Chronicles of Narnia. And I was rereading some right before I started the channel, and I got, so many recommendations. It kind of got out of my hands, but I read like the first 3 or 4 again. I was like, it's so much charm. C.S. Lewis, so good at what he did. And he's a wordsmith, just a beautiful writer. And I hate that it feels like this one's kind of getting lost, because it's one of those where these things depend on new generations getting it handed down from their parents. And now it seems like everybody's handing down Harry Potter. So I said I feel like Harry Potter is the new Chronicles of Narnia. It's kind of replaced that it'll just keep getting passed down through generations. But it makes me sad because it feels like Chronicles of Narnia might start to disappear a little bit. And don't even talk about that Netflix adaptation, because it'll just make me angry. And I don't want to flip tables here on the camera. The Licanius trilogy. Now you might think this one, oh, everybody talks about that. Do they though? Because I remember when the Licanius trilogy first came out, this is by James Islington. And the reason I want to bring it up is because everyone really seemed to love The Will of the Many. And everybody's talking about the strength of the few, which is cool. I'm excited for it too. And I like, you need to go back and experience Licanius, because I think for a debut author, that was an amazing trilogy. It wasn't perfect, of course not. He had so many threads in that. But I think this is one of those series where I say, I don't have time to reread anything. I want to reread that one. Because when you know what you know at the end, you feel like, there are so many threads in that series that you could follow and really, really get a kick out of it. But where I say that it doesn't feel like BookTube talks about them, all I remember is when Shadow of What Was Lost came out, is all the Wheel of Time fans being upset about it and saying it sucked. It's just because it had a comparison to Wheel of Time on the cover. That was the only reason. It seemed like they all went to it with their arms crossed and they wanted to hate it. And then no one read it because of those people saying it was just a Wheel of Time ripoff. It's got magic in it. It's also got time travel in it. It's nothing like Wheel of Time, in my opinion. I don't see that comparison whatsoever. I would see you comparing it more to saying it feels kind of Cosmere-like. So if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan, I think you would try it out. But if you really like Will of the Many, go back and try Licanius. Again, it's probably not as polished as you would say Will of the Many is. That's his 4th book, of course. But going back and reading these 3 together, I think you'd love it, especially you don't have to wait between books, because there are so many damn threads, and you will be like Charlie and Always Sunny in Philadelphia with a little board, just connecting everything, because there's so many moving parts in this, and it's so good. Maybe the best ending I've read in all of modern fantasy. It's that good. They sticks the landing so well. And I feel like no one's really given this a try, but they're all like, I can't wait for Strength of the Few. And I can't either. But yes, give this one a try if you like The Will of the Many. The Writer of Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. This is one, again, you say, look, Michael J. Sullivan is very successful. He basically crowdfunds all of his books now. Everything is a Kickstarter, and it sells out in like 6 minutes. So he's very, very successful. Very few people talk about the Writer series on YouTube, like at all. Like, well, I mean, if I can go into YouTube and I can type in Writer Revelations review, and I'm the first one that comes up, that means not enough people are talking about it, I don't think. So there's not very many people do talk about it. A lot of people seem to love it, but not a lot of people talk about it. This is one of those, if you just want some classic, traditional fantasy, you don't need all the modern checklist of everything that feels like they got to do, where it feels like an AI is writing the 3-plot structure for them, you'll like these a lot. And it has 2 of the most likable leads I've ever read in a series. Royce and Hadrian, it could be going and trying to find the kingdom's best chicken sandwich, and I'm in. And yes, I'm going to keep using that line because Brian at BookTube said that he wants a chicken sandwich now with Royce and Hadrian. And I do too. But great series. Great, great series. I'm reading the prequel series right now, but I can get quite a bit as well. And then there's one I think is going to be, I loved it when I started it, and I don't know why I went away from it. But what I think is going to go back to being my palate cleanser series here very, very soon is going to be The Legend of Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. Now, this is one, when I first started reading it, I always kind of avoided it because I was like, look, I don't understand Dungeons and Dragons very much, so I don't know if I would understand the books. And they're like, you don't have to play Dungeons and Dragons to read Drizzt. It's nothing like that. They were excellent. These were really, really fun books. I had a great time with them. Yeah, it's fantasy that you've heard a million times before. It's nothing really, really reinventing the wheel. But I love that group that he puts together, that band of heroes that is with Drizzt is just so delightful. And I'm in the 3rd series right now, which is Legacy of the Drow. I'm going to be continuing that here in the summer. But those are short. You know, they're all under 300 pages. They're very, very short. You can get to them really quick. Not overly complex. Most of the world building is already there because he's playing in the Forgotten Realms. And it's just, it's such an enjoyable ride. And I just love, like, in between, like, acts in these books, Drizzt will have, like, these journal entries. And it's like, that is deep, thought-provoking stuff. Like, I bought that book, The Tao of Drizzt, which is just those journal entries. Really, really great stuff. So I think that I highly encourage that. Check out the Drizzt series. I think that Icewind Dale is incredible. And I think that Dark Elf was really, really good as well. So I think if you like good animal companions, it has one of the best. And you like some really good fight scenes, because good old dual wielder here is some really, really good stuff. And I love this series. I can't wait to get back to it. I've read 7 books in the series. I've loved them all. I haven't had a stinker yet. So I will be continuing with that. And I hope you will as well. Don't let the thing, oh, it's got like 40-something books. Don't let that deter you. They're broken up into trilogies or 4 books. And I think you can just kind of do those like I did with *ŌĆØ of the Eldlings. You can do them kind of whenever you want, because they aren't real cliffhangery to a point where you're like, well, I've got to read the next arc immediately. You can always go back to them, and he'll give you a nice little brief recap of what happened in the previous arc. And it really is easy to dive back into with long breaks. So highest recommends for Drizzt and Guinevere. One of the best animal companions ever. It's up there without a doubt. And lastly, guys, this one, you might be a little surprised to see it because I have seen people start to talk about it a little more, but still not enough people talk about Tad Williams and Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Guys, you love Robin Hobb, you love A Song of Ice and Fire, merge those together. That's what you get here with Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I think this guy is owed so much of a debt by the fantasy community because he was writing those things. Besides George, I don't see a lot of people giving him credit for being such an influence that he was at that time. He seemed like to be that first one who kind of stepped away from traditional fantasy, good guys versus bad guys, and the good guys always win, and the good guys always live. He seemed to be the first one to be like, I'm going to kill off important characters. I'm going to make characters a little bit morally gray. I'm going to make the heroes do some things that might not be the best idea, but hey, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He seems to be one of the first I've seen start that, and he writes in such a classic way that I say, if you had told me that this is what Tolkien had written after Lord of the Rings, I would have believed you. It really does feel that kind of whimsical, that magical, and incredible, incredible series. I am going to be starting the sequel series, Last King of Ōsnār, next year. So if guys, you want to read this and then join me for the read-along I'm planning for Last King of Ōsnār next year, I would love to have you. But these deserve to be read. If you love fantasy at all, this is one of those like pillars, I think, of 90s fantasy that really set the stage for everything that was going to come before we got to the morally dark characters, the grim darks, all those things. This really was the origin of all that, and I think it deserves to have some love put on it, and that's what I hope you'll do with all of these series, guys. Please check out any of these series if you haven't immediately. But again, like I said, make sure you're paying attention. Do you want traditional fantasy? Do you want modern fantasy? Do you want grimdark fantasy? Because some of those are not going to be for everybody. But I think if you are into those things, these series are going to be some I think deserve your time, your patience, and your love. So guys, did I leave off any series you think are super, super popular, or I guess you want to be more popular than they actually are? And that counts just ones that it doesn't seem like booktubers talk about enough, because hey, I'm always looking to plan the next big series. So drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.